Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mount Mindset. I'm your host, Gio McNee, and in this week's episode, we're going to pick up where we left off, covering some of your questions that you've got on the property front. So what I'd like to do in this episode is cover off some of the myths that are involved in some of the strategies that you can use in property. Now, why property is such a popular way to get started is it's been the route for many people to develop financial freedom because it's very, very, very simple to do compared to other investment strategies. The second thing is it is widely used and widely available in terms of how to structure it, how to finance it, and people's basic understanding. Because they have a reference point to property and know how it works, it means that learning the strategies are very, very tangible. And the third thing is it's got lots and lots of data behind it. So you can find out pretty much what's happened through house sales, house prices, market data, market information, booms, busts, and everything in between. So it's a great place if you are looking to get out the rat race, you're sick of working paycheck to paycheck, and you want to start to develop your method to get out of this thing that we call the rat race. So what I'd like to do is cover off some of the myths. I'm going to start with what happens in the property cycle. So do you know how to use your point of view and perspective to take you from A to B? A being you're sitting there with an idea, you've got a concept that you want to start developing this route where you can get to financial freedom. You want to, and the basic way to look at that is you're making more income from your investments than the income that you've got make it from your job or your profession. That is the gold standard that everybody wants to achieve, and there is no better way to do it with income producing real estate. So let's cover off some of those myths that are commonly misportrayed, and I'm going to go into a little bit of detail because one of the things that I'm known well for is, amongst a whole host of things, is being a property guy. So I'm going to help you figure out these little myths to see if they're true or they're false, and also what you should consider when you're actually going out there and doing this for yourself so that you can find the right style and strategy that works best for you. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first question is serviced apartments too risky? Now, there's a very, very common thing when you go out to do anything in life, and it's the risk versus the reward. So what I mean by that is if you are taking something that's lower risk, expect lower reward. And if you're taking something that's higher risk, you would need higher reward to make that make sense. So in terms of our service department risky, I think the nature of this question is comparing it to something that would be your bog standard entry, which is if you're out there and you're looking to buy a property, you buy the property and you're looking to generate income, there is two, possibly three very popular routes on the way to do it. So we'll keep these methods simple. So say the first one would be a buy to let. So that means that you're buying the property, you're going to find someone that wants to rent it, and you're going to rent them that property, and that rent will cover your mortgage and make you some profit. So an example would be, say you can get a mortgage on a house, the mortgage costs $500 a month, you can rent the property for £1,000 a month, you agree a rental agreement with someone that wants to rent it, they pay you $1,000, you pay out the bank $500, so you're up £500 a month. There's your basic buy-to-let strategy. Now, the second one would be a house of multiple occupancy. So say you buy a bigger house that is people can use the rooms, they'll rent the rooms and they'll share the common facilities like the bathroom, the kitchen and the living room. They will have their own room that they rent and they will share the facilities. So that's typically for larger houses. Typically people that are in HMOs are for 3 rooms or more. They are very, very common in university areas, so places where students will typically rent properties, or real hubs. Say, for instance, London, where renting an entire flat might be out of your budget, and you're looking for somewhere that you can rent a room and it be a bit more budget friendly. So HMOs are very popular there. Again, the entry price on HMOs are generally higher than buy-to-lets because you need to buy a bigger house, a bigger property style for that to work. So buy-to-let's usually more favoured. The other thing that you could do is serviced apartments. So serviced apartments, the same sort of idea as an Airbnb or a booking.com style property. It's a short-term let, which means that you are renting it out to people anywhere from a night to 28 nights, where they can take the property on, and there'll be a variety of people, whether they be contractors, they could be holiday makers, they could be people doing a staycation, they could be people that are working in the area, they could be people that are up visiting their family, it could be people that need a property while their house is getting fixed or refurbished, or maybe they've sold their old house and they're waiting for their new house to be ready. There's a whole variety of different reasons why someone would take a serviced apartment. Now, the serviced apartment route is deemed as riskier because you have more people going through the property. What if it, if it sits there empty, you've got much higher costs. So to give you an idea, most people would think serviced apartments are risky. But back where we started, which was if you take more risk, you generally get more reward. The return for the risk that you take is generally 2 to 3 times more income than what you would get if you were doing a traditional buy-to-let. The HMO, you usually make slightly more than you would in a buy-to-let on a percentage basis, but again, that entry point is a higher price point. So it's usually the apples for apples comparison is if you're buying a particular property and it lended itself to either doing buy-to-let or SAs, and you wanted to consider which one should I do, is the serviced apartment way riskier than buy-to-let? And I would say that in my experience, it's not riskier. Lots of people think it is because they maybe have more footfall going through the property, or it's downtime. If it's vacant, what happens if it's quiet, and all this type of thing. But if you've done your analysis properly, what you want to do is analyse the area that you're buying the property in, and ideally what you want to do is have it in mind that you're looking to do one of these two options. And what you want to do is establish, will this property work in this area for these two different strategies? So like an example would be you can buy a property, and just because you bought the property doesn't mean there's demand for rental. You can buy it in the middle of nowhere. There's no, it's extremely rural. There's nothing going on in the town or the village, or maybe it's out in the country, and there's just nobody around to use that property. So rentals and serviced apartments, there's a need to find if the demand will be met in that area. So what you want to do is first establish, if you're going to buy a house and you're going to consider these two options, is make sure it fits, because you can actually find properties that fit both. And that means, interestingly, you would have two strategies, meaning that you could try one, say serviced apartments, and then if you don't like it, you can move to buy-to-lets, because the property would work for both. And then you can look at, if you're aiming more towards serviced apartments rather than buy-to-lets, you can see if there's properties that fit that profile much better. So things that you're looking for is hotter holiday let destinations, contractors in the area, if there's investment projects going on, and all these types of things where you can pick a property based on it being probably better as a serviced apartment than a buy-to-let. And that would then make it much less risky compared to what you thought the risk was going to be, because what you've done is you've stacked the chips in your favour. So I would certainly say that the risk of serviced apartments is not what most people think. So let's go into some of your other questions. Number 2, is serviced apartments too much work? So what that will probably mean is when you do serviced apartments, there's more work involved. If you were to take the management of a buy-to-let or a management as a serviced apartment, what would be the work involved? Now, when you do a buy-to-let property, you're buying it, and typically someone's going to rent it for a reasonably decent period of time. Again, it's not guaranteed. Contracts used to be either 6 or 12 months. Now they're a rolling contract for tenancies here in Scotland. So generally what will happen is people that do a buy-to-let will be looking for a home that they'll be using for a reasonable amount of time, and can sometimes be very long-term tenants. And you want to find out if you're going to need to do a significant amount more work on the serviced apartments. So things that you do on a buy-to-let is you find someone that's going to rent it out. They're going to use it long-term, and you're not going to have too much sort of turnaround where there's lots and lots and lots of tenants, lots and lots of, refreshing the house and that type of thing. Also, when you're renting out a property, some people have their own furniture, so you can rent an unfurnished house out, and that means that you don't need to furnish it. That if you've got someone long term, they might want to decorate and style the property to their own liking. So you might not have these costs associated with it. Compare that to serviced apartments. When a serviced apartment, for those of you that don't know what a serviced apartment is, a serviced apartment fills the gap between a hotel, which is a room and facilities that are there. Think you go there, you go to a hotel room, it's got an ensuite, it's got a bedroom, it's got tables and chairs and usually facilities on site with a hotel, but you're only getting a room. And then you take buy-to-lets or a rental, which is usually a long-term rental, but you're getting the use of a whole property. Now, how serviced apartments fits in is if you need more room or more space, or maybe there's more than one of you, then a hotel room probably isn't suitable. So if you're going to use the hotel room, and there's, say, 3 of you using the hotel, you need 3 rooms. Where if you get a serviced apartment that has 3 bedrooms, then it can be much more valuable and much better value having a serviced apartment, because you've now got 3 rooms at a much cheaper rate. You've got the use of a kitchen. You've got the use, you can wash your clothes. You can cook your own meals because you've got the cooker and a full bathroom. So there's certainly advantages, and it fills the spot between a hotel and a standard rental. But what's involved in doing that is you're going to need to provide the furniture, the soft furnishings. You're going to need to provide the utilities, so things like gas, electric, Wi-Fi. You're going to take care of the garden if the property's got a garden. Maintenance is much the same when you're dealing with properties, but generally there is more work involved with the serviced apartment. But back to the first point is that when you provide a serviced apartment, you are going higher up the risk range and higher up the work range, but you're also getting rewarded because there is much more return in terms of what work you've done relative to the reward that you receive. So in essence, buy-to-let is a lower amount of work. In the serviced apartment, it's a little more work, not ridiculously so, and certainly it's not more than what you would do in, say, for instance, your own house. So it's not going to be uncommon or unfamiliar or like crazy compared to the work that one might expect in their own place. So it's certainly not prohibitively difficult, but it's certainly more work than buy-to-let. But I wouldn't let that put you off. And what I would do is, again, consider how much the difference in terms of value is. And again, back to your strategy that you're doing it for. If you have a desire to have a lower work or a lower risk, then buy-to-let is definitely something to consider. Because if you're looking for that sort of more hassle-free, less sort of turnover, then it's definitely an option. And if you get the right types of buy-to-let, there's a lot of buy-to-lets out there that I don't think are great, but there is certainly, if you buy the right types and you've got someone that can find the real gems, then buy-to-let still very much works. Compared to serviced apartments, it's good, but it's not as good as serviced apartments, but you are trading off that little bit more work and a little bit more capital outlay to do it. So you got to go with what fits best for yourself. Number 3, the question, does serviced apartments only work in main cities? That's a complete myth. What I alluded to earlier was exactly that point, is, there's people that, for a variety of different reasons, we've had people that are, up visiting family. We've had people that are, coming here to even if, say, people that are visiting the area because they're contemplating moving to the area. A great thing you can do is go and hire a property on Airbnb and go and check the area out, see what it is, give it a trial. Come up and stay for 2-3 weeks and think, do I like the area? Do I like the place? What's it like? What's the feel of the place? What's the energy like? What's round about? And you can feel it out. I think it's a great way to actually figure out if you want to be in that particular area. So it's certainly it applies where there is demand in the area, and there's demand in quite a lot. It would surprise you how much demand there actually is, and I would think that it's the same sort of idea as the demand for hotels. Like, hotels aren't just in bustling cities. hotels are in all different locations, and people go to these locations for a reason. And the reasons can vary, but the demand is usually based on the fact that people are, looking for something that's short term, that fits their needs, and serviced apartments fit into that really, really well. So it's certainly, don't get put off by thinking, hey, it can only be certain cities, certain locations, it needs to be next to a train station, it needs to be next to a financial hub, it needs to be next to, a factory and all that type of thing. It's just not the case, because there's such a diverse, clientele of people that would use a serviced apartment. So definitely don't let that one put you off. So number 4, but if there's more guests, there is more wear and tear to properties. So I actually believe that's a bit of a misconception. As someone that has seen both sides of this, I've had guests that would be are incredible at looking after properties. There's some guests that leave the property just as clean as they came in, and they're tremendous. They're absolutely outstanding, fabulous guests. Would have them back anytime. Really, really tremendous. And in the same token, I've had tenants that are great, tenants that are incredible, tenants that look after the property like it's their own. They'll add to it, they'll improve it. Really, really, really incredible tenants. But with the same token, I've had a few, shockers over the years. I could write a book on some of the stories I could tell you about what I've seen tenants do to properties. And that's not all tenants. I'm not giving tenants a bad rap. Tenants are great. And a lot of them are really, really good. But there is a strata of them that are wild in terms of what they think they can leave a property in terms of conditions. And I'm not looking for anyone to cry me a river for a landlord, certainly not. But for the purposes of telling you a story of some of the things that I've seen, it's certainly that wear and tear can happen in a normal rental property. So don't think that just because people are going in and out, the traffic of people coming in and out is no different to people coming in and out of property. It might be different people with a serviced apartment, but the actual amount of traffic of going in, going out, going in, going out, going in, going out is will be similar, because people go in and out of the properties each day just the same as guests. The big thing is people will demand a higher standard in serviced apartment, which I think is perfectly reasonable. And if you're getting changeovers done in a property, someone's going in to inspect that. So you might have a tenanted property that you might not see for months and months on end. You don't know if it's deteriorating. You don't know how well it's been kept. You don't know what's going on there because no one's in there checking it regularly. But compare that to a serviced apartment. These properties are getting checked, weekly. So you're very, very, very aware of what the condition of the property is like, if it's in good order, if it's in good shape. So you can actually keep tabs on it. A lot of people think that the neighbours would have a problem with serviced apartments, and it's a reasonable concern. But one of the things that the feedback that I've certainly had is because these properties, and remember we're comparing a buy-to-let to the serviced apartment in this example, is because the buy-to-lets are you have lots of difficulties evicting a difficult or a tricky tenant, where with a serviced apartment, you can deal with it, you can nip it in the bud straight away. So if someone's causing you hassle or causing problems, you can just ask them to leave and say, look, that's it done, you need to go. Where you don't get that option easily with a tenant. There's a whole rigmarole and legislative process that is very, very, very difficult and in favour of the tenants. So if you have a bad tenant and someone that's causing not only damage to your property but causing hassle for neighbours, it can be really problematic. On the upside with serviced apartments, because you're keeping the serviced apartments, lots of neighbours are happy because the garden's getting kept well, the external decorations are being tended to, internally is getting looked after, because this standard needs to be met at a higher standard, the property's being managed and much, much more hands-on. And that gives neighbours a lot of confidence, because sometimes they would have thought, oh, look, this could be a bit of a problem, but they generally see that as a massive positive that they maybe never considered. And that's quite a good thing, because I think that helps lift the area up, especially when you see some of these properties and you can see the turnaround happen, you can see how good it looks, and that can make a big difference. So is it just a fad? This is a great question because it's something that comes up regularly, and I don't know how people come up with this. I mean, there is certainly things that are fads. We see things come and go all the time, and usually these things that come and go are a bit of a novelty. They're a shiny toy and shiny object syndrome. So they are here today, gone tomorrow, flash in the pan. People get bored of them and then they're on to the next new thing. But people that think Airbnb is a fad is crazy, because you look at how long Airbnb have been going, which is over a decade now, and it's, if anything, it's accelerating and getting more popular rather than decelerating or being a flash in the pan. Now, it comes back to my point earlier about what gap that fills. Is the reason that Airbnbs are extremely popular is they fill a particular gap between the hotel, which is a single room, pretty, confined, contained, difficult to cook your own food. We're going to have the bodybuilders in here tomorrow. You can imagine these guys trying to live at a hotel room if they were working away. It's difficult to do your meal prep. You need to wash your clothes. Hotels they're good, but they're not like it would be if you were at home. Say you're working away for a long period of time. Maybe some of these creature comforts like home would make a difference to you. The ability to wash your clothes, cook your own food, cook a nice meal, to have a living room, have a full-size bathroom, to have a bedroom that's separate from all these your clothes and your stuff that you bring with you. Where in a hotel room you're cramped, but maybe you need the flexibility that you don't want to take a long-term let. So you don't know when the contract might finish, you don't know how long you're going to be, so it needs to be a flexible arrangement. When you get an Airbnb, you can just book it for as long as you need, and then you can drop your stuff, all the creature comforts, but with the flexibility that you would get if you had a hotel, and usually a more attractive price point. So you can have more facilities, more space, more room, and your creature comforts, and generally it's at a better price point. So you can see the advantage and why it fills the gap. And this is what I mean, is it has a mechanism that it fills the need in the market, and the market's responding, saying that we want more of these. And that's why you're seeing the big push for the likes of Airbnb. The great thing that does is it helps the tourism in the area. So if you look at Scottish tourism, we get a lot of revenue. The economy is based a lot on tourism. Lots of local jobs are created when there's more influx into the towns and the villages where people are coming. They're coming into the area and they're spending money that wouldn't have otherwise been there. That's creating jobs for the local community. So businesses are doing a little bit better. Restaurants are doing better. The local shops doing a bit better. Takeaways are doing better. And as that money comes into the area, then there's more jobs that are created, and there's more, more productivity. And that productivity is great because that lifts the revenue. When it lifts the revenue, that helps local businesses and local people, because they can start to then earn a little bit more, and they can start to lift that area up. So there's lots of positive benefits for this thing, and if anything, I think it's only going to accelerate instead of be a flash in the pan. Now back to what we started with, which is if you're looking to invest, then it's a great way to find your way out of the rat race, which is, can you buy a property that can earn you some passive income, which means that you're not needing to be hands-on, trade your time for money, and this thing will pay you an income. And here's some great strategies and what you can do to get started. So if you'd like to see the video of me going through a live example of this, so that you can see what it is that I do and how I work out deals, and more importantly, if you were to buy one of these, what would it cost you? So is it within your reach? Are you close? Do you have more than what you need? And if you bought one of these and got it managed so that it was a complete armchair investment, you didn't need to do anything. You could go out there, you could get one of these properties, and then you could start making the types of money that I could show you in that example. What would that do to you? And again, start to extrapolate. If you got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of these deals, what would that do? If you had that passive income and multiplied it before, what would that do to your situation? And then the magic number is, how much does it cost for me to get one of these? So if you'd like to see that live example, click link below in the show notes, and you can see me do a walkthrough, and I will show you exactly the whole breakdown. You can go behind the scenes with me, where I'll show you exactly what is what, so that you can get the real facts, the real truth. None of this is like, projected. This is real numbers, real properties with real examples, and you're going to see a projection. What I thought it would do before and what it actually done in real terms. So if you'd like to see that, hit the link below. Share this with someone that you think this might be useful for. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. And if you give me a follow on all my social media channels, and if you like this type of content, drop a comment wherever you're watching this. If you're listening on Spotify, please feel free to leave me a review. It'll take 10 or 15 seconds, and it really helps the channel. So hope you enjoyed this week's episode where I cover off some of the top myths. If you've got any more, please do send them in. And if you like this content, then it's had great feedback so far, and you'd like to see more of it, let me know, and I'll continue the property series. So hope you enjoyed this week's episode. But from me this week, that's a wrap.